In the chorus, I have some harmonies that she recorded that I'll add in later, but for the verse, I don't have any harmonies. So one technique I use in a situation like this is I like to create artificial backing harmonies with Melodyne. Now the thing is, I don't want everything to be harmonized, just certain spots. So I'll typically go through in Melodyne and I'll pinpoint the areas where I think harmonies would work out, and I'll just cut out the spots where I'm not going to be creating harmonies. So I'll duplicate my verse vocal track, and what this will do in addition to duplicating the region is it'll duplicate all of my plugins, including the Melodyne plugin, which has all of the tuning in it from before when I tuned up the vocals in the verse. I also have to decide on what intervals to use for the harmonies. So typically harmonies will work best up a third or down a third, and sometimes up a sixth or down a sixth. So if a vocal melody starts on and is sort of riding around the tonic note, so in the key of D minor, that's D, I find that harmonizing up a third is usually the best option. If a vocal melody sort of rides around the fifth, which in the key of D minor is A, I find that harmonizing down a third is usually the best option. And if a note rides around on the third, like F in D minor, you can try out either harmonizing up a third or down a third. But keep in mind, these aren't hard rules or anything. This is just a good starting point. So if I play this back...
Now that you're sober, don't tell me that it's over.
You're just going to hear both the lead vocal track and the harmony track play in unison. But if I shift the notes around...
Now that you're sober,
you'll hear the harmony between the tracks. So next I'll go through and I'll pinpoint the spots that I actually want to harmonize. So this opening section, I'm just going to delete that because I don't want to harmonize that. But this second phrase here might work out.
Don't tell me that it's over.
It starts on the third, goes up to the fifth, and then rides back down to the third. These bottom two notes, I'm actually going to delete those because I don't want to start harmonizing there. So what I can do is I can harmonize this down a third. So pulling F down to D is pulling it down a minor third in the key of D minor. However, this note up here, F sharp, is not in the key of D minor. So there's a couple ways you can do this. One, you can just manually pull notes down or up, or what you can do is you can try retuning this section and snapping the notes to D minor, and the notes will automatically snap to the key that we set earlier. So let's give that a listen.
Now that you're sober, don't tell me that it's over.
And actually this note, I'm going to pull that out as well.
Now that you're sober, don't tell me that it's over.
Now you could also try harmonizing up a third. So if I take this, go up to the original, which was F, and this was up on A, and I pull this up a third. So if I go up a third, this is F up to A, up a major third. We end up with some notes that are out of key as well. There's no B natural in the key of D minor, it's B flat. And there's no C sharp in the key of D minor unless you're working with harmonic minor. So I'm going to pull this down to C.
That it's over. Now that you're sober, don't tell me that it's over.
Now you can also try out fourths and fifths. So I'll keep this note on a third up from the original melody, but I'm going to pull these notes up one more step. So I'm going to pull this from B flat up to C, and then from C up to D.
That it's over. Don't tell me that it's over.
It sounds just fine, but I like the original harmony I created down a third, so I'll go back to that.
You can't give one more day.
So I think Can't Give One More Day is a nice option here.
Can't give one more day.
So this one rides up to the fifth, comes back down to the third, and then back up to the fifth. So I think a good option here is down a third as well. So I'll pull the A down to F. I'll pull this C sharp up to D. I'll pull these E flats or D sharps up to E. And then this split note needs to be retuned. As a matter of fact, I'll just tune everything back up here. Snap to D minor. And we'll just pull this down to E. There we go.
Can't give one more day. Tell me that you can't give one more day. Don't.
Now another option here is you can try tuning up a sixth. So technically if you tune a harmony down a third like this, but then you take that whole selection and you pull it up an octave, that's actually the same thing as tuning up a sixth. So there's some harmonizing intervals I always remember. Harmonizing down a minor third is the same thing as harmonizing up a major sixth, except it's an octave higher. Harmonizing down a major third is the same thing as harmonizing up a minor sixth, but an octave higher. And you can invert this too. If you harmonize up a minor third, this is the same thing as harmonizing down a major sixth, except it's an octave lower. And then if you harmonize up a major third, this is the same thing as harmonizing down a minor sixth, but an octave lower.
Tell me that you can't give one more day.
That doesn't sound so great. It sounds really chipmunky sounding, really robotic sounding. If she was going to have that harmony in there, I'd prefer that she come back into the studio and actually sing that in. So I'm going to go back to a third down.
Tell me that you can't give one more day.
So I think this part will sound good too.
Ever tell me why?
So it ends on the tonic. So let's pull this up to F, the third. Let's try retuning these to D minor and see if that fixes those notes.
Ever tell me why? Don't you ever tell me why?
So I think this last phrase will work out well. So when you see a descending melodic pattern going down to the tonic, it's usually a dead giveaway to harmonize up a third. So I'll pull this D up to F, and I'll retune this to D minor.
I don't want to know. Don't you ever tell me why? 'Cause I don't want to know.
So one thing I like to do when I create artificial harmonies like this is I like to pull down the pitch modulation a bit more than I normally would for a lead vocal. And this just helps to smooth out some of the natural pitch drift and vibrato in the harmonies. With harmonies, I also find myself playing around with the formant tool. And what the formant tool does is it shifts the harmonic series in her voice. So if I shift it down, it's going to sound more masculine.
I don't want to know.
If I shift it up, it'll sound more feminine.
I don't want to know.
So you can play around with that to play around with the tone of the harmonies as well. Sometimes I find with harmonies that I've shifted up, they get a bit chipmunky sounding, so I'll pull down the formants a bit. And it'll just sort of soften the tone a bit.
I don't want to know.
So for EQ, I'm going to pull out this high frequency sibilance boost. I'm going to pull out this low boost. And I'm actually going to add in a low pass filter. And I'm going to use the low pass filter to sort of filter out some of the high range. And the reason why I do this with harmonies is that the high frequencies in the harmony are going to be the most likely to collide with shared frequencies in the lead vocal, which can cause some phasing issues. I'll also pull the harmonies down in the mix a bit, and I'll usually pan them off to the left or right just a bit, just to keep them from colliding with the lead vocal.
Now that you're sober, don't tell me that it's over. Don't turn this ship around and tell me that you can't give one more day. Don't ever tell me why. Don't you ever tell me why. 'Cause I don't want to know.
Now, if you want to go nuts with this, you can actually stack up multiple vocal harmonies. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to create a new mono audio track. And I'm just going to call this Harmony 1. And I'm going to set the input on this to bus 1. And I'm going to set the output on my harmony track to bus 1 as well. And what I'm going to do here is I'm going to transfer the Melodyne tuning over to this audio track. And then we're going to reuse the harmony track to create a second harmony. So one thing I am going to do is I'm going to disable my mix plugins. I'm also going to set the volume to unity. So just arm this for recording and hit record.
Now that you're sober, don't tell me that it's over. Don't turn this ship around and tell me that you can't give one more day. Don't ever tell me why. Don't you ever tell me why. 'Cause I don't want to know.
So what I want to do is here and here, I want to take these harmonies that I created that were down a third and layer them up a sixth as well. So what I'll do is go back into my Melodyne plugin and pull this harmony up an octave. So now it's a harmony up a sixth, and I'll do the same with this one.
You can't give one more day. Don't can't give one more day.
So that's really cool. You've got the lead vocal in the center, and what I'll end up doing is taking this third down and sixth up harmony and panning them off to the left and right. So off screen, I printed the second harmony down to its own track and added some reverb and chorus.
Now that you're sober, don't tell me that it's over. Don't turn this ship around and tell me that you can't give one more day. Don't ever tell me why. Don't you ever tell me why. 'Cause I don't want to know.
So when you create artificial backing harmonies this way, you have to be really careful about how you mix them into the song. You don't want them to be too loud, because if they're too noticeable, they'll sound fake and robotic. If you just tuck them in under the lead vocal, they can really help to support and thicken the vocal in certain parts.